Good morning. We are live. And welcome. Having a little bit of difficulty this morning as we've had with the last few weeks. Good morning. There we go. All right. We are live. We're showing up here, I know, on YouTube. I'll be on in a moment on LinkedIn. Hopefully, Oneness Talk Radio will be up there so I can share that. If not, we'll share it anyway. So good morning. I'm Nicole Borghi, and I am your enlightened enchantress. And this is the Soulful Illumination Show. It is Thursday, February 4th. It is almost what? Heart Day. It is almost Valentine's Day. So are you ready to fall in love with yourself? Because self-love is tough love. You are the hardest person to love sometimes, right? We can be our own worst enemies, or we can be our best friend. And that's what we're going to do today with my guests, is we're going to talk about that. But for a minute, I want to talk about my sponsor for the show today. We have doTERRA. And if you don't know, it's an essential oil. What does it do? Herbs and oils heighten your frequency. And how do they do that? They heighten your frequency by adding to. It's a tool, just like a lovely little crystal, a selenite stick, or any type of crystal, any tool that you can use as you're working on healing yourself, raising your vibration, opening up to the higher consciousness you want to raise up. Hey, you want to make contact with ETs, you can do that by raising your vibration and lifting it up. Anytime you're feeling a little bit low and you want to elevate those emotions and pick them up and be the stronger you, be grounded to Mother Gaia and live in your full potential, you can do that with essential oils and herbs. And in here, I'm not sure if you could see that too well, but you could see it on my website. What I'm giving away with the Heart-Filled Summit this next week, if you're on the newsletter, go ahead and subscribe. And we are giving away, Trixie is giving those away in the Heart-Filled Summit on the 13th to a few lucky listeners. It has rose flowers in it, which is extremely high vibration. It has frankincense. Open your mind, open your heart. What it is, it's a prosperity blend that I have made. It has that beautiful Reiki intention. These oils have been out under the full moon. So they've got a great booster, 2 boosters in them, plus the height of the essential oils themselves, because rose, frankincense, orange brings you joy, lifts you up. There is some clove, there's some cinnamon in there. Those are all prosperity oils. They lift you up and they raise your vibration. So you want to anoint yourself with those oils. If you have questions, just email me, Nicole Borghi at sabotagesmasher.com, or go to the website, Sabotage Smasher, right? Subscribe to that. You'll get my free book, Conquer the Imposter, because that's what we're going to talk about. Feeling like the fraud, feeling like the imposter, opening your heart, leveling up your soul, your vibrations. It is about you. It is about how can you heal? How can you raise your vibration? Right now, because of the way things are in that greater consciousness, we want to be at our truth. It is, for me, my picture is, and I've seen this, some of you understand that I have known this since I was a child, what was to come right now. And in doing that, I had to be prepared. I had to be that spiritual warrior, that spiritual rebel, and say, I've got to move past the spiritual bypass. And people that know me know that I am going to come out and be as blunt and blatant to you and give you that simple truth, because we don't need to feed and intersect some of that news that we share with each other. It is great. Some people have just this beautiful gift of gab and they can color and portray beautiful pictures. But sometimes, in order for it to hit home and to just get us in that shadow and into our heart, we have to pinpoint it. And sometimes it's tough, but we've got to understand where we're at so we can heal. And that is the energy of now. It is the energy to open up. It is the energy to open up our heart space. And is the energy to have and ignite your intuition. Those of you who are pushing away your gifts of being an empath and feeling the energy of others and understanding it, not living in their energy, but understanding how to read other people. How about opening your intuition? In order to open up your intuition, you have to have faith and trust in you. You have to love yourself. And that's what I mean by self-love is tough love. Because to honor yourself, to be the integral person, I can say that word today, right? To be the honest person, to have great ethics. But that is that story of the spiritual path and the spiritual warrior. We all want to strive maybe to be our own guru to ourselves and to be that better person. In order to do that, and in order to change the world, you can't just go out and shake them up. I'd love to, trust me. Go shake up people by the collar and say, hey, stop doing that. Do it this way. This is the way it's meant to be done. But that's not what we're doing. We're not activating that. We are moving past that activism and activating our energy chakras. We are living in that heightened sense. And in order to raise up to those other dimensions, you have to move up to that. That is what this is about. That's why this conscious collective has just kind of shook us up and shaken us to our core today, because we need to wake up. And sometimes, when you're younger and your brothers and sisters, excuse me for a second, when your brothers and sisters kind of shake the bed and they want you to, hey, get up, you've been sleeping way too long. That's what that collective conscious, that's what God, source, and the creator have said. Look, you're not waking up. You're not listening to what is you, what is your truth, that spiritual power that you have. Let it out. And that's what I do. So you go to Sabotage Smasher, you can book a call with me. It is absolutely complimentary to have that coaching call and to find out where you're at right now in this spiritual journey and where you want to go. What are your goals? Do you need somebody to help you, to hold your hand, to guide you in that way, to be real with you and say, hey, it's going to take a little bit of work, but we can get to that personal empowerment through alchemical transformation. It takes a little bit of homework and it takes a whole lot of healing. And you can use some fun tools along the way to get to that point of success where you want to be. Let's break through to brilliance and ignite that intuition. So go to sabotagesmasher.com and subscribe. You'll get that newsletter. And you know what? Right now, I am going to bring on a fantastic guest, the Queen of Reframe. She is awesome. If you can go ahead and unmute Carol. Thank you so much. I'm going to bring her in and I hope you guys can see her because this is exciting. She's awesome. She's very passionate, very to the point, very strong with her energy, very loving. So Carol, welcome to Soulful Illumination.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
I am so glad to have you on as a guest because I listen to you and I've met you kind of through the networking of Beverly, yes. Another great person that changes that mindset. And I want people to meet you for the first time. How did you become the Queen of Reframe?
Oh my goodness. Let's start with a story first, right?
Okay.
I told you earlier that sometimes, you have to trust in someone else's vision for you until you can believe it for yourself. So picture this. It's the spring of 1987. I'm going through a divorce. I know I don't want to be a tennis teaching professional my entire life. For those of you that don't know me, I'm an ex-collegiate and professional tennis player. And my car caught on fire. And the insurance wouldn't pay for it. So I called my dad. I knew my dad had been in the insurance business for like 30-something years. Now, you got to know my dad's from the Deep South. So I call him up and he says, I tell him my story. And he goes, now, Carol, I'm not in that kind of insurance. But if you come home, I know somebody will help you get a new car, even if you don't have a job. So off I went. And there I was, and I get a new car in Shreveport, and I head over to Dallas, Texas, and I was living with my second cousin. She was head of personnel for Neiman Marcus, and she taught me how to buy the pearls and the navy suit, right, and the heels and the pantyhose. And so glad you don't have to wear pantyhose anymore, right? And so this is at a time, just for context for your audience, this is when the government broke up AT&T and all the baby bell monopolies. So long distance competition was fierce, right? So I got hired by a company called Metro Media Communications. And the lady who hired me said, will you come in tomorrow and meet my boss, the vice president? So I said, sure. So in I go the next day, and she interviews me, and she looks at me, she says, that's great, Carol. I'll see you in Miami in a week. And I said, no, you won't. Now, mind you, I needed a job, right? I said, you got an office in Dallas. I'm interviewing in Dallas. My friends from the tennis tour are in Dallas, and my family's 3.5 hours away. And I guess it was pretty ballsy, Nicole, but I said, I'm working at Dallas. She just calmly looked at me and she said, I need somebody really strong in Miami in a week. And I said, how do you know I'm strong? I've never done this. And here's what she said. She said, just trust me and be there in a week. And so I did. And that led me to a very successful over 26-year sales career for Fortune 100 companies.
Wow.
ATT sprints and paychecks. So there I was in the summer of 2014. I mean, I'd been through a car wreck. I'd missed some work and everything, but I was living the dream, right? I can do this in my sleep. I had sold over $70 million in revenue in all those years. I had walked the stages, gotten the awards. I thought I had it made until the day I got that phone call. And they told me they were cutting my territory by 80%. I'm like, 80%? You're setting me up to fail. Now, I was a weird salesperson, Nicole, because I love big corporate structure and I'm a rule follower.
And that is not usual in the sales. I grew up in a sales family. No structure whatsoever.
Let me tell you, that last job I had at Paychex, one time we were in a sales meeting and they brought in the director of operations, Kevin. And Kevin's talking to the salespeople about their paperwork. And when you turned in your paperwork, it was called a load, right? Because you had to get Fed ID and SUI support and workman's comp, all these things. So he starts off and he goes, if everybody would turn in their paperwork like Carol, we wouldn't have this problem, right? Because I was the only one that never, ever got a load rejected. All my paper, I followed the rules. Everything was done to a T, and I had a system for it. And afterwards, I went up to him and I said, Kevin, you're part of the problem. He said, what do you mean? I said, you're allowing your support people to call up these new clients and get the stuff that these salespeople should be turning in. So you're enabling them. And he looked at me and I said, stop doing it.
Right.
And he did. And guess what? People's loads started getting rejected. What happens when your load gets rejected? You don't get commissions. You don't get commissions. You don't eat, right? So a friend of mine at this time whispered in my ear about an opportunity with a really small company. And I thought, well, I don't know what I don't know. And off I went. They interviewed me twice. They gave me a director title. They doubled my base pay plus commissions. I could just see the opportunity. Now I negotiated a vacation up front because I'd already paid for it. So there I was 6 weeks into the job on vacation in beautiful Albuquerque, New Mexico. For those of you listening, if you've never been to the world's largest hot air balloon festival, you got to go. And next October, meet me there, 50th anniversary. It's incredible.
Oh, how fun.
So that's where we were. And at the time, I was doing what I thought a good employee should do. And that was what? Stay in touch with your boss, the CEO, while you're on vacation.
Right.
Now, I don't advocate that for my clients anymore. I'm like, honey, when you're on vacation, right? As a matter of fact, I just found a place the other day to go to. It has no internet, no cell service, no TV.
That's awesome.
Totally decompress, right? So I got an email asking my opinion on something and I replied right back. And then I waited. And I waited because he usually replies right back, and he didn't. 12 hours later, we come in from dinner and cocktails and ding, there goes my phone, Nicole. It says, Carol Boston, you've got mail. And here's what it said. It said, Carol, that's what you really think? And it had 5 question marks behind it. And then it said, don't bother coming into this office on Monday. When your vacation is over, you're done here.
Ooh, I hope you had a really good vacation to recover.
I was like, what? I just got fired? I don't get fired. I just got fired in an email for an opinion I was asked for. Now, one of the things I help my clients learn how to do is to advocate for themselves. And it's because I didn't advocate for myself in that position at that time. I knew Florida was a no-fault state, and I said, oh, well, I didn't go try to find out what had happened or what went wrong. I found out later. And if you want to know, I'll tell you in a minute. So I came back and I had an interview the very next day. I had a very, very successful sales career. And I was flown all over this country, California, Texas,
That's awesome.
Chicago, Atlanta, New York. Couldn't get a job, sometimes 4 interviews deep. I was depleting my 401k. This went on for so long, I'm not even going to tell you. And faith is my foundation, right? And that's where I go. And so in my prayer time, I'm like, God, I really did kind of yell this time because I was at this point, right? I said, look, you created me. You know, I'm not cut out to own my own business. I do not want to be an entrepreneur. You have got to help me find a good job. And literally 2 weeks to the day from that prayer, out of the blue, I get an email from a woman that I met one time out of town at a conference. And she gifted me a $3,500 ticket.
Hello.
God's calling to go to Los Angeles to study at Guerrilla Business School, which was a foundational school for entrepreneurs. So I tell people, you know, my God has a sense of humor. So what I was doing wasn't working. And I thought, I don't know what I don't know. And off I went to Los Angeles. And the very first thing I learned is you can't read the label when you're inside the jar. And we're all in a jar. That's going to be the title of my first book. You can't read the label when you're inside the jar. But here's the thing. For my clients, I tell them I can read your label and I can help you write a new label so that you can throw an anchor into your future and let go of that story that you've brought with you from the past that's keeping you stuck, right? Yeah. The second thing I learned, and this is where the Queen of Reframe comes in, but I wanted to make sure your community had some context there. I learned about empowering questions. Yeah. And I was amazed at them. And I will tell you, I've talked to a lot of coaches. I've interviewed a lot of coaches. You may have seen some of them on my show. None of them really know how to ask and craft true quality, empowering questions. And the deal is, if you don't ask the right questions, you're not going to get the right answers. No. So I was determined to master them. Empowering questions in leadership. And I began to study with the best. Nirka, Michael Strassner, who was a pioneer in leadership, John Maxwell, Lisa Nichols. And so that was what I was doing. Now, fast forward to fourth quarter of 2017. And I was getting my second coaching certification. But let me tell you something that's important. I was still holding on to 3 very unique services that I was trying to sell into HR of corporate America. Why in the world was I doing this after spending more than 6 figures? Think about that. Huge investment I made. Wow. With no income all that time. And I realized that I was holding on to that because it's what? It was familiar. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You know, and often we will hold on to what's familiar, even if it isn't comfortable. People confuse comfort and familiarity, right? How many of you right now are staying in a job because it's familiar, but you're unhappy and it's uncomfortable? Right. Think about it. So then I learned something very powerful, and I give Lisa Nichols credit. I learned there's a big difference between being committed to something and being convicted to something. Because you see, when you're committed, think about it. People decommit all the time. Oh, yeah. I'm committed to this marriage for life until the day I'm not. Right. Right. Or I'm committed to losing this 10 pounds and it's next Monday, next month, next year, and it never happens. But when you're convicted, you won't rest until you get it done. So I let go of those services, and beginning 2018, I was all in. There was no plan B. It was plan A. It was all in. Show up and deliver. And that's what brought me here talking to you today and being the Queen of Reframe. Here's the thing about empowering questions. They help you reframe from focusing on what isn't working, and they open you up to opportunities you've never considered before. They're questions that cause you to get curious. They open your awareness. They cause you to ponder. They create what I call Oprah aha moments. Yeah. You know, and earlier I said, we're all in a jar, right? That's why I believe we all need a good coach, right?
Huge, huge.
At one point, I just read something today, a lady who's Oprah's life coach right now. Her last name is Beck. But at one point in her life, Oprah had 4 coaches. And someone said, why do you have 4 coaches? She said, nobody's an expert in all 4 quadrants of my life. And I want to know that I'm living my entire life at the highest level. Right? I want you to think about that. I gave a workshop at the Fort Lauderdale Chamber of Commerce one time, and I gave that example. And I said, so if you're here today and you're hoping to get dating advice, I said, you're in the wrong place, because that's not my lane. I'm going to stay in my lane. We're going to talk about growing your business and growing your leadership, because they are very, very, they go hand in hand, if you will. So I want you to think about that. We all have opportunities sitting right here that we cannot see. We can't see them. So when I say ask empowering questions, here's a big caveat. You are not to sit around and try to figure out the answer. You're telling God and the universe, I'm open to seeing, hearing, saying, or doing something I've never even thought of before.
Yes.
Right? That's how they create those aha moments. So let me give you an example of how powerful an empowering question could be. So I had a client, and when she first came to see me, this is back in 2018, I had an office, and she was right on time. And by the 4th visit, she was seriously late. So she came in, and I'm the shake your hand, give you a hug girl. So I give her a hug, sit her down, and I said, get out your pen and paper. We're not going to miss this coaching opportunity. And she kind of looked at me, because we don't typically jump in like that, but I just knew. So she gets her pen and paper out, and if your audience is listening, they want to write this stuff down too. And I said, write this down. How I do anything is how I do everything.
Yeah.
Right? Now think about it. As human beings, when we have made a commitment and we show up late somewhere, what do we typically do? We say, I'm sorry. And then we want to give a story, a defensive story about why we're late, right?
Oh, huge.
So there's 2 points I'm going to make here. One, if you're late to a meeting, don't say I'm sorry. Ever. You're making it all about you. You go in and you say, thank you for your patience. Thank you for your understanding. Let's move on with the meeting. Make it about them.
Yeah.
And how many women apologize for stuff they don't even do?
They apologize for other people.
Yes. It's incredible. Make it about the other person. So what do you think she did? She started to give me a story about why she was late. I go, no. This is not about you being late. And she said, it's not? I said, no. This is about where else in your life are you not showing up for you? She looked at me and she said, what? I said, write it down. I said, where else in your life are you not showing up for you? You pay me in advance for my time. I am not giving you any money back. And I'm not giving you extra time, because I have a schedule of clients that I keep. And she kind of looked at me sheepishly and she goes, is that my homework for the week? I'm like, honey, that's your homework ad nauseum. I want it on your dashboard. I want it on your mirror. I want it on your refrigerator. I want you putting that out to God and the universe out loud at least 6 to 8 times a day. Will you do that? And she said, yes. Fast forward, I don't know if it was 10 weeks or 12 weeks into the program. She was at my office again, and we're working on a business problem. And all of a sudden her eyes fly open and she goes, I said, what's up? She said, that's another place. I'm not showing up for me. I said, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Her doing that, coupled with the other tools that we put together for her, she doubled her income in 6 months.
Wow.
From the year before. Now, I really want you to hear what I did. Most people would have said, why are you late? Here's a writer downer for your audience. This is huge. An empowering question never, ever, ever starts with the word why, ever. Why brings in defensiveness, which brings in the ego, which brings in emotions. And when emotions go up, intelligence goes down. It's true for every human being. That's a writer downer. I want you guys to be thinking about that.
Yeah.
For those of you who have children, or perhaps you don't have children, we all had parents, right? So either you did this to your children or your parents did it to you. Came home. I'll give you a couple examples. You came home late, past curfew. What's the first thing your parent says to you? Why are you late? What do you want to do? The first thing you want to do is give a defensive story about why you're late. You've got to protect our ego.
A few doors slam, things get broken in the hall.
Or perhaps you went through a situation like I did. I do not have children, but I was a child. And I remember coming home in 7th grade and I had 5 A's and a B on my report card. I was excited. And I gave my report card to my dad and he goes, "Why'd you get a B?" I said, "But Dad, what do you think I just did?" I tried to defend myself. I said, "But Dad, I got 5 A's. That's not what I asked you, Carol. Why'd you get a B?"
Oh.
And I said, "But Dad, David," that's my older brother, "David got 2 C's and a D."
Ooh.
My dad said, "And we expect a lot more out of you, young lady."
You carry the weight there.
Not only carried the weight, but the story I told myself at the time, based on that and some other things I experienced in that household growing up between 2 boys, is that I had to be perfect to be loved.
Yeah.
And I carried that. I have to be careful of that still in intimate relationships because I will over-deliver, overgive, and not get my needs met. And I'm much better at now because what did I do? Empowering questions help me reframe that story. Instead of thinking, my dad is telling me you have to be perfect to earn our love. Now I hear that story as he knew I had all these great qualities and he just wanted the best for me. So he was encouraging me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Total reframe.
Wow.
Total reframe. I wish I had known about empowering questions decades ago. I would have made a lot fewer mistakes.
It's a beautiful way to really detach from yourself and look at it from a different perspective and say, hey, let me look at this from a different angle. If I'm the person looking outside of my own life, the theory of relativity, where are you standing and juxtaposed to what you're doing and what's going on? How important is it? And how far back does that go, kind of thing. So you could just say, okay, let's look at this, stop doing it, or look at it from a different angle and say, okay, maybe it was actually a blessing instead of such a negative point of my life. It's just a way to change it around.
But we get to choose how we view it. And write this down, folks. There is power in choice. Every time you blame your boss, you blame the company, you blame your spouse, you blame your kids, you blame the weather, you blame COVID. Guess what you just did? You gave up your power because you can't control any of them.
And they don't care.
No, they don't care. I had another client. I love this man. He would love for me to tell you his name because I gave him this cool nickname, but I won't do it here. But in January of 19, we'd only been working together about a month. And he comes in and he is mad as hell, Nicole. For 6 minutes, he was stand up, sit down, F-bomb the wife and her company, F-bomb the kids and the cell phone and the TV and the Netflix budget, and F-bomb the guys at his body shop. And it was for 6 minutes. I looked at my watch and I calmly sat back in my chair and I said, "Reggie, just say I choose." And he would go on and I'd wait a little while and I would say, "Just say I choose." And after 6 minutes, he was somebody goes, "Okay, girl." He was shaking because I choose. And I stood up and I gave him a high five. I said, "That is so awesome because now that you're owning that you're choosing, you can choose differently going forward, can't you?" And he looked at me. He looked at me. And I gave this man homework in all these areas. And I saw him 2 weeks later. Nicole, for the first time, he came in dressed in business clothes. I want you to think about this. First time. He hands me a piece of paper. He goes, "There's the budget for the wife and her company. Those are the changes for the standard operating procedures. Here's the budget for the kids and the cell phone." And I was like, oh my God, the change was incredible. Now, one of the things that I have my clients do is that before each session, 24 hours in advance, they fill out this prep form that I give them. It's 5 or 6 easy questions, but what it does, it allows us to hit the ground running. We don't waste time in story. I'm all about maximizing time, right? So one morning he comes in, I give him a big hug and he sits down and I said, "Reggie, now I want you to think about my language." I didn't say, "Why didn't you send me the sheet?" I said, "Reggie, I was looking for the prep form, but I didn't get it." You know what he said? He sat up in his chair and he goes, "I chose not to send it."
But he owned it. He owned it.
Exactly. Exactly. And so I tested him. I said, "What compelled you to make that choice?" Once again, I didn't say, "Why did you choose?" Because then I get this defensive story. I said, "What compelled you to make that choice?" And he started to give me a story and he got about a sentence and a half in. He goes, "Nope, that's just a story. I chose." And I said, "Awesome. And you can choose differently going forward, correct?" He never missed another week. There's power in choice. There's power in choice.
It's huge. We have that willpower and we have that choice. And to wake up and say that I'm not a victim. I mean, I grew up in a domestic violence with mental health issues. So realizing that, hey, I can choose to be the victim. I could choose, to be the aggressor. I could choose to survive, or I can just choose to succeed and have a good life. It's so wonderful when you realize, oh, it's my choice.
Yes.
Not the guy next door, not the girl down the street, not my bosses, not the government's. It's Nicole's choice. And then that's a big burden. You're like, what? I got full control.
Yes.
It's awesome.
And that's about, personal leadership. And the thing about empowering questions, they're similar to what Stephen Covey taught us in the 7 Habits of Highly Successful People. Habit number 5 says what? Seek first to understand and then be understood.
Yeah.
But the difference with empowering questions is you're not trying to get somebody else to understand you.
Right.
That second part is about you understanding you. Think about that.
That's huge. That's huge. Even being a speaker or being a teacher, you're so worried about that understanding and that story. Are they going to relate to that? But they're relating to that context and that sharing. It's huge.
Just like I did for that client. What was the question I gave her? Where else in your life are you not showing up for you? She learned about herself. It wasn't giving her a question about somebody else. And when I said the caveat is, you cannot be attached to the outcome. Mm-hmm. And people oftentimes have a hard concept with that. So I could tell you lots of stories, but a simple one was a couple of years ago, I knew I was going to speak 3 times in the month of November, and they were all being held, different organizations, but they were all being held at the Tower Club, Fort Lauderdale. Now, being a member of the Tower Club, Fort Lauderdale, I knew that they had a podium and they had a big handheld mic. I am not a stand behind a podium girl. I'm out there with my audience when I speak and when I talk. I'm not carrying a microphone around. So I went over and I sat down with them, and I want your audience to write this down. I'm going to give you the most powerful of all empowering questions. It's what else is possible? What else is possible? But remember, the caveat is you're not trying to figure it out. So I sat down with her and I asked her, and I said, well, what else is possible? And she said, Carol, that's the way we've always done it. And I said, I know, but what else is possible? And she said, Carol, we have a podium and we have a handheld mic. I said, I understand. But just think about it. What else is possible? So finally she goes, oh, I'll go ask. A week later, I'm at the Tower Club. Listen to this. For the first time in 70 years of this organization, I'm testing out their first lavalier mic. Now, here's the point I want to make. If I had gone in there and said, I have to have a headset mic, I'm not going to hold anything, I'm going to walk around. If I said I have to have a headset mic, and those are more expensive, right? I may not have gotten any solution at all. I was not attached to the outcome as long as I didn't have to stand behind a podium or carry one of those big fat mics.
Yeah.
Think about that. You're putting it out to God in the universe and you're saying, I'm open to hearing, seeing, saying, or doing something I've never thought of before.
Absolutely. And if you're not attached to it, you never know what's going to happen. It's just manifesting, right? You're manifesting and you're allowing, hey, you know what? I desire to do something different than what I've been doing. Hey, let's try this out. And you get gifts. Just bizarre sometimes the way things happen.
Oh, yeah.
Like, hey, I want a cup of coffee. Oh, hey, I got a gift certificate for coffee. Awesome. It's not really the denomination that maybe it's like $10, but hey, it's still that free cup of coffee. You rang and the universe served, right?
Can I tell you one day I was, I'll never forget, it was early in a Sunday morning and I had my whole morning mapped out. I needed to hit the pet store for the pet food and Home Depot for something and whatever. And Home Depot was last on my list. And I thought to myself, oh, I don't want to go to the bank. I wish I had enough cash on me. I don't want to use my credit card. And I got in my car and I remembered, oh, there's an ATM on the way back to Home Depot. I never did my other things. I went to Home Depot first. It was like I was on automatic pilot. It was last on my list. I show up at the parking lot. It's 6:45. Nobody's there. 2 cars. I open up my car door, and what do you think's on the ground?
Money.
Two $20 bills and 2 $5 bills.
That's awesome.
Paid for my fertilizer, paid for the cat food. It was awesome. Paid for everything. And, I talk a lot about, I'm putting together a new online course and my new signature talk, and it's about limitless leadership, right? And there's going to be 7 steps in there. And I've called myself a leadership coach for a long time. And a couple of years ago, I went and did a private mastermind with a very well-known multi-million dollar coach. And I came back and I sat down with a lady who I'm on my team, and I said, Lori, either I don't know how to explain myself, this was 2 years ago, or Suzanne just doesn't get me. And she was, what do you mean? I said, Suzanne says I'm a business coach. I'm not a business coach. I'm a leadership coach. And Lori said, Carol, how do your clients introduce you to other people? And I said, they call me Carol, this amazing business coach. And she said, they're looking at the end results. Most of my clients double and triple their income.
Right.
I was thinking of all the leadership principles, habits, thoughts, beliefs that I got them to adopt. So when I was looking for new marketing language, she said, go back to your clients and say, look, I know you tripled your income. Good for you. I want to know some of the benefits of working with me so I can have marketing language.
Yeah.
One of the things that came up across the board, they skyrocket in confidence, skyrocket. And it's one of the very first foundational pieces that I work on. It's about clarity, but in my new step, it's going to be called authority. Are you owning your authority and stepping into who you were created to be? I had a client, to give you a quick example of that, she was a female family lawyer. And this foundational piece of work I do, and just to give you a little bit more context, when you're going to craft empowering questions, you start with an empowered statement. And an empowered statement always has an embedded presupposition. Way too much information. That's a 3-day course, right? But anyway, you do that. And so then you can develop from there. So I personalize and craft these for my clients, and they're powerful. And one of the ones I gave her was, I'm a powerful CEO of a fast-growing law firm. She couldn't even spit the words out. She looked at me like I'd lost my mind. She said, my business isn't growing. Why do you think I hired you? And so when that stretch, that leap is too big, I give them a little phrase to put in front of it that says, I give myself permission to consider.
Yes.
And so for, I don't know, if it was a couple of months, I used to have them stand up and say them to me all the time. And they had a certain number of times. That guy, Reggie, you know what he did with his? Because he had a certain number of times a day he had to do it. He put it in a plastic sleeve and hung it on the shower head.
Oh, wow.
He did them every morning, every night, right? Because that's when our brains are most open, right before bedtime. Your brain can process it first thing when you get up. And so that with some other tools, let me tell you a cool thing about this COVID thing. Most lawyers at that time, 2 years ago, they're taught in law school. When you get out of law school, you get brick and mortar and you hang your shingle up, or you go to work for somebody who has brick and mortar, who already has their shingle up. Due to some big challenges she had in her business, I got her to go virtual. We got rid of her in-house paralegal. We got her 2 virtual, awesome paralegals. She happy as a pig in mud. And we totally revamped her business. But here's the thing. It was probably about 3 months in. She walks into my office and she stands up and she says it and she owns it. And she says, I'm a powerful CEO of a fast growing law firm. And I was like, yes, right.
Ooh, yeah.
Her testimonial on my website, if you go look it up, part of the testimonial says, I got more clients in 6 months of working with Carol than I got in the first 4 years of my practice.
That's amazing.
Part of that is owning what? She was a powerful CEO of a fast growing law firm. We create as we speak.
Yes, it's that voice. It's sharing it with the universe. Even, writing it down, but I love saying it. I love saying it. But I love to share with clients. It's so amazing when they're ready to say it, when they own it and they speak it. and they chant it, and you get that wonderful text, even in the middle of the night. Hey, guess what? Awesome. Yeah, ding. You're like, that's something to wake up to. That's the reason that we coach and work with people, is to share in that empowerment and that change.
Exactly.
Do you feel like their energy change and the way they stand, and even sometimes they change, like you said, the gentleman, he changed his clothes, what he was wearing, he owned it.
Yep, he owned it. He was making choices, and he was responsible, and he was running the business, and he was in charge of the budget at home. And it changes everything. I mean, it really, really does. I had a client. She calls herself the Dog Mystic. Look her up on LinkedIn, the Dog Mystic, and she's on Facebook too. And she and her boyfriend do cool things, right? They were doing, before COVID, they were doing yoga. So people would bring their dogs to the park, and he was the shaman guy, or whatever you call him, and he would run the yoga, and she knew how to do energy healing work, and she would go around and heal the people and the dogs.
Oh, wow.
Pretty cool, right? So one of the statements that she drafted, you're never going to get this past the Queen of Reframe. One of the statements she drafted was, I'm accepting of the fact that I'm slow. I was like, what? Talk about bringing a story with you from the past. I said, scratch that. And here's what you're going to start saying. I am perfect just as I am. Once again, she couldn't say that. That wasn't coming out of her mouth. So what did we do? We gave herself permission to consider.
Yeah.
And it took her, I don't know if it was, like I said, 2 months, 3 months, this is a couple of years ago. But man, the day that she owned it and she said, I am perfect just as I am. I mean, her skin tone was different. Her eyes lit up. She carried herself different. Guess what we did? In her dog training company, we doubled her income in 6 months.
That's amazing. It is so amazing to resonate with the frequency of you and understand that it's such a core issue.
Yes.
So much that, wow, sharing it with clients and saying, hey, let's kick this forward, because you're sharing, especially as a healer and working with other healers, and saying, you know what, you can get out there more. You can share this more. There's other ways for you to do that. And you're resonating now with that money energy, and you're owning it, and you're being prosperous and teaching others to do that as well through your change.
Yeah.
So beautiful.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And
it's to get to watch transformation is a blessing. It's a blessing.
Yes, huge. It's a huge blessing, and to be part of that, and to know that, hey, you're out there making a difference, and now you can pass that on. They're out there making a difference, and you can see that, and they share that, they refer that, and they go out there, and it's so big in the business because now you can be seen more. Even Beverly, when I met Beverly years ago, I couldn't even get on a video, live or not. I was like, nope, I'm good. Why would I want to do that? Well, because you can gain exposure. Well, why would I want to do that? I want to be invisible, and learning that there's more people I could talk to. I love it because I love having conversation. I have met wonderful people like you and been out there. It's networking and sharing and making connections. But just the blessing of other people being able to find you and to set those little seeds and have people just watch that and be part of it and extend without that community throughout. And it's such a beautiful thing when you see how much it magnifies and it goes out there so much farther than just you in your Zoom room.
Oh yeah. It's a tremendous ripple effect. Tam asked me one day, this was in a private conversation, and she said, right off the top of your head, what's the first thing it took to become a professional athlete? I said, you got to show up every day. You show up no matter what you feel like. One of the things my clients learn, and this, you have to unlearn a lot of stuff first, but confidence is not a feeling. Confidence is not a feeling. And it's about showing up. So when COVID hit, let me tell you, all those years in sales, I'm the shake your hand, give you a hug girl. And I was growing my business face to face. I probably did 20, 30 networking events a month. I was just being with the people, right? And I got clients in some of the strangest ways. One time I was at the Tower Club, Fort Lauderdale, and this woman walks up to me and introduces herself. And Nicole, I don't know what I asked her about her business, but she answered. And you know what I did? This is a true story. I don't make this stuff up. I reached in my pocket. I got my business card. She was taller than me. I looked up at her and I said, "Oh, honey, you have serious boundary issues. You need to come see me. I can help you with that." You know who that was?
Who was it?
That was the female family lawyer I told you about.
Oh, wow.
And look what we did in her business. She was having boundary issues in business. If you're having them in business, you're having them in your personal life too.
Huge. Yes, that's huge.
And so anyway, when COVID hit, I was just kind of at a loss. I had known earlier, I talked about staying with what was familiar. See, I knew in the back of my head I was never going to scale a big business, doing everything face to face. But what was I doing? Staying in my comfort zone again. God dang it. We only grow outside of our comfort zone. Write it down, right? You got to get uncomfortable. But COVID, so what did COVID do for me, right? You and I wouldn't even know each other. And I had no idea what to do. So let me tell you what, May 31st of last year, we're 2 months deep into COVID. And I saw this group on Facebook, and they allowed you to speak live for 30 minutes during Inspiration Week. He has Inspiration Week, and each day has a different theme. So I went in and I picked a theme. Nicole, I was totally ignorant about Facebook Lives. Like, I didn't even know there was a comment section that you're supposed to engage with people. I'm used to going into corporate America and doing and teaching and training. I mean, 2019, I was hired 6 times by American Express. And one of them was a deep dive in empowering questions around the areas that you talked about earlier, core values and objectives, right? Mm-hmm. So I didn't know how to keep growing my business because I was so used to doing it face to face. So May 31st, I show up on Saturday afternoon and I talked for 30 minutes. I got off. I was just happy that I knew how to turn the live on and turn it off. That's 2 weeks later, I got a client in London who saw that.
That's amazing.
But it emphasizes my point. You got to show up. I love interviewing people. I did a summit last summer, a 21-day summit, and I discovered I love interviewing people. And I
did see some of that.
Did you?
I was able to watch some of that. I remember. Okay. And it's so amazing to be able to do that in a summit and to share, exponentially, right? It's amazing.
Listen, one of the ladies on that summit that I interviewed, the day her talk was released, I got an email from a woman I didn't even know. And it says, "I just watched your interview with Carla. If I hadn't known any better, I'd have thought you'd known her for 20 years. I thought, what a compliment, right? I was like, thank you. That is so cool. But there's a purpose to this story. So when I started learning about visibility and becoming visible, one of the things that I was in a group, I was learning from the best of the best. When I say the best of the best, the first 6 months of COVID, she made $2 million on Facebook Lives.
Hello.
Yeah. So in October, there I am in a special new customized program by her, learning from the best of the best. And she had to start doing these Facebook Live swaps in alignment with people whose community is in alignment with you. And I mean, I just started booking. I started reaching out, doing qualifying interviews and booking. Well, one day I went on my own Facebook Live page. It was 11 a.m. and I said, "I want you to come back at 11:30. I've got this Facebook Live going, blah, blah, blah." And I come back 30 minutes later and guess what? No guest. Guest didn't show. 11:35, no guest. 11:37, no guest. Now, I've asked a lot of people. Most people would have just put a post out there. Sorry. Blah, 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 blah. Uh-huh. I'm an ex-professional athlete. You got to show up.
Right.
You know what I did? I went on my live on my page and I entitled the live, I made a play on Where's Waldo? And I said, "Where's the guest? Where's the guest?" And I went on, and that's how I started with Where's Waldo? Where's the guest? Guess what? You thought you're going to get a guest with me like you do every other time. You're stuck with me today. So as long as we're just going to be me, we're going to be informal and comfy. And I said, I'm going to roll up my sleeves. And I did this, and I rolled up my sleeves. And I sat there, and I talked for about 15 and a half minutes. I want you to think about it. 2 hours later, I get a private message on Facebook. "I want to get unstuck. I want to get unstuck. Call me. Here's my number." And I literally said to myself, I don't even know what I talked about. Did I talk about getting unstuck? So I replied back to her and I said, would you like to do a Zoom or a phone call? I'll do a Zoom. We set it up for the very next day at noon. I get on the Zoom. This woman is so excited. She goes, I went back and watched the live again this morning. There's power in showing up. I got another client.
It's huge. And you follow your intuition and you follow your gut. You follow that instinct of where to go and where your clients need you, and find that trust in yourself.
But honestly, years ago, I probably wouldn't have showed up either. It was still a brand new platform for me. But when I talk about, I'm very transparent. I talk about you can't read the label when you're inside a jar, and we're all in a jar. And guess what? A coach just pointed out to me last week. The only 2 times that I've gone live by myself, I got a client. She's like, why the hell are you having all these people on your page?
Right.
I couldn't see outside the jar. Suzanne said, do this. I'm doing this.
Right.
And I'm having a blast. But I'm going to get, you know what I did yesterday? I went on my Facebook Live by myself. And I said, there's going to be a change of plans. We're moving it from my personal page to my business page. And you're going to start seeing a lot more of me. And I started reaching out to I interviewed somebody every day, every weekday in January, except for the last 3, because I was in a course.
Oh.
She said, people aren't getting to, they know you're a good interviewer, Carol. Do they know what you do? Do they really know how you serve your clients? And I thought, I got to get out of this jar. Thank God for a business coach. Here's the thing, folks. We can't fix our own stuff. We can't even see it.
No.
We can't even see it. She's like, go cancel some of those. Move them out. Don't move them out past the end of March until you've done this, this, and this in your business. I was like, thank you. Okay, I can do that.
We're wrapping it up. It is such I've had such a splendid time talking to you. It's amazing, the gifts, and when you put that out there that you want to talk to other people that have that same love for their clients and want to share that transformation. How do people find you?
They can go to my website, www.carolboston.com. Actually, if you go, there's a freebie there for you. And it's 5 empowering questions to help jumpstart your 2021. If you're someone who thinks you want to work with me, there's a place on there that you can book a call as well. All of my social media is the @ the Carol Boston. That'll get you to Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Instagram. Oh, and on Wednesday nights, 5:30 Eastern, you got to come. Craft cocktails with Carol. Bring your mocktail, bring your smoothie, bring your coffee, whatever. Just show up. We have fun. We tell stories. We weave in a little business. Ask Beverly. Beverly was there last night. Beverly's a hoot, right? Beverly already decided that next March is gin month, right? This month is vodka month. Last month was champagne, and I'm not even a big champagne drinker. And there I was trying to figure out how to make drinks, and we have fun. So you can, if you just want to get to know me a little bit better, you could join my group on Facebook.
Awesome.
I'll give you the links. It's Year with No Fear group. Year with No Fear. So lots of ways. Come find me. Love to get to know you.
Oh, amazing. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Have a great day, folks. Thanks for being here.